In this video, I'm gonna make a portrait based on a photo. To do this, I'm gonna be using a method called the grid. As you can see, the way this works is by simply creating squares, same unit squares, to cover the size of the photo that you want to draw, and then replicating that into a sketchbook like I'm doing right now. The units I'm using here are centimeters. My squares are 3 by 3 centimeters, except for the last row. The last row is 3.5, simply because the photo was a little longer. Now I'm going to leave the photo on the corner here as a reference. What I'm basically doing is I am looking at the photo and each square, and I'm trying to replicate the outlines. I'm starting with the eyes, well, the facial features first, because that's the most crucial whenever you're drawing a portrait. Our brains are actually designed to pick up any minute details on a face. So even an untrained eye can easily realize or spot that something is off if those features don't match exactly. So the grid really is helpful to get as accurate shape as well as size and location. It is crucial to get this right, especially for the face, because if it is not done properly, the face or the portrait that's drawn, it's not going to look very much like the original. Now, what's so useful about the grid method is that you can actually increase or decrease the size of the photo, meaning you can create a drawing that is greater or smaller than the original photo simply by doubling or tripling the grid units, or reducing them by half or 3/4. So currently I'm simply outlining everything that I feel will come in handy once I start to shade. And as you can tell, now I am erasing the grid, or at least making it much fainter. I'm doing this because once you start shading, the grid will get in your way. So the goal for the grid is to simply get the outline done. Once you have that, then you can start removing it, or at least erase it partially. Now I am starting with the eyes here because it's probably one of the most crucial features to get it right. As I'm shading, I am using very, very light touches. I'm not going very heavy with my hand. Part of the reason is, in case I make a mistake, I go back and erase it. You probably can see glances of me using an eraser. And part of it is that I want to build up as I go along. So I don't want to go very dark, very heavy at first. I'm simply taking my time. Now, the way I'm doing the shading is I'm trying to follow the facial features, the surface of the face and the eyebrows as much as I can. You don't always have to, but do your best. As far as replicating the different tones, all I'm doing is just looking at the photo, and any location that I see a dark shade, I just go dark at that exact spot. So you just simply do the best you can. I don't expect a beginner to get a very, very refined shading, and that's okay. With practice, it does get a lot better. The quality gets better. So when I first started shading, it was not at this level, and you probably have seen other people that are at a much higher level than I am when it comes to shading. I'm going relatively quickly here, even though it's sped up, of course. I'm still going relatively quickly with the shading because I want to get an overall kind of like resemblance going on. At first, you might not see resemblance, and that's because you haven't drawn or shaded all the features. But as you put in more and more details in, you will start to see more and more the resemblance of the photo. And if it's not exactly the same, that's okay too. You know, it's all about practice. Nobody is good at first, so it takes time. So here with the hair, what I'm doing is I'm trying to follow the flow of each set of hair there. Now, normally I wouldn't do that. In this case, I am, because his hair is quite visible. So I am simply trying to replicate the flow of his hair to kind of help me get an idea where I should and should not go darker or lighter. Again, the beard does not have to be shaded very, very accurately. It's one of those features that we do not realize the exact differences between the beard. So you don't have to be very specific. However, you do have to be very specific, as I mentioned, with the eyes, the nose, and the mouth to create that resemblance. The hair and the beard, they have to be close enough, but not too accurate. So as you can see here, I started light in certain areas, and then I go back and I go a little darker, a little darker, a little darker, wherever I think I should go dark. And you can keep on going. Think of it as layering the drawing. And the reason, as I mentioned before, is just in case you make a mistake, you can go back and erase it without having to worry about your heavy dark marks right away. So right here, I'm kind of moving all over the place. Wherever I see a location that needs a little darker tone, I go back and I put in darker tone. Working on the ear here, going quite loose at first, and then going in and making the darker tones there as well. The pencils I'm using here are an HB and a 2B. Now you could use just a regular number 2 pencil, the yellow ones. It's not a big deal. The only difference is that pencil, it's kind of like an in-between, which is actually it's a perfect pencil for a beginner. You have dark enough tones, but not too dark to cause you any issues if you make a mistake. Just remember, keep it very loose. If you look at the way I'm holding the pencil here, I'm relatively loose with it, and I'm kind of drawing from a distance. I'm trying not to touch the drawing, just so that I don't make any marks. It's very easy to smudge things with your fingers. You don't have to do that. It's not as easy to do so. It takes some practice. And part of the reason why I'm going using this approach is so that the video from above can actually capture me drawing. So I don't want to cover the drawing with my hand. But yeah, so pretty much I'm simply going in at every location and adding in a little bit more tones each time. The whole drawing, it took me about 3 hours, and it could go a lot longer depending on how much detail do you want to get. Now I have to mention that drawing from a photo can be quite tricky, especially if you're dealing with a color photo like I am. And this particular photo, it's a little bit blurry, so it does not have features as pronounced. In some ways it's good because it allows you to get certain tones more visible, but in other cases you don't get as detailed as you might want to. To make it a little easier for yourself, I do recommend trying to use a black and white photo and photo that have very dramatic lighting, meaning you have a strong light coming from one side. That way you have very pronounced shading on the other side, so it's very easy to know where to shade and where to go light. Whereas this one, it's so, and the colors kind of get in the way in realizing how dark are the darks and how light are the lights, simply because you're dealing with a skin color. But again, you do your best, try and imitate as much as you see, and And yeah, following the grids will make your drawing a lot more, I would say it would resemble the original a lot more than if you do not. So I strongly recommend, if you want to practice drawing portraits, use the grid. It's wonderful to get started, and even a lot of the advanced artists still use the grid as well. There are some that are super talented that can go without a grid, and that takes talent but also a lot of practice. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, if you're wondering who this gentleman is, he is a Turkish actor named Akin. I'm gonna write his information in the description of this video. If you like the video and you would like to see more, make sure to like, subscribe, and please feel free to leave any comments with any suggestions for new videos or any clarifications you might have regarding this video. Thank you.